Today is the finale of the Weather Trio runs, but I saved the most interesting for last, so let's just dive in and find out how overpowered Primal Groudon can be in Generation 1. When I did the original runs, Groudon ended up taking the top spot among the 3 box art legendaries. The Mega Rayquaza and Primal Kyogre runs, they had huge improvements, but those two are basically just stat upgrades with no real mechanical changes. Primal Groudon, on the other hand, actually changes things up. It goes from a mono ground type to a ground and fire dual type, and my first thoughts is that this is a strict downgrade, but I'll talk about it as the video progresses. Up front, you need to know that this is a blind run. I'm testing the Pokemon, figuring out what it can and can't do, and once it's over, I'll go back and we'll cover the optimization. Now, the key thing here is that I have no real plan. I have no idea how good or bad this run will turn out, so we'll just have to see. I'll go over the stats and moves soon, but for now, we're taking that bare minimum path, so let's just see how the first gym goes. A simple fact usually rings true about Generation 1 Pokemon. Special is king, and special attackers generally perform better. Now, to put a number to it, across both tier lists that I keep track of, about 70 to 80% of the top 10 are primarily special attackers. I bring that up to highlight one thing. Precipice Blades is a 120 base power move, 180 with stab, and it's super effective here, so that brings it up to a massive 360 total power. Primal Groudon has 180 attack, and it's only behind 3 other Pokemon to ever exist, and I still cannot one-shot. Even if I crit the Onix, it's still going to take multiple turns. If you had a special move that was even a third as strong, I think you would one-shot easily here. Now, it's a roundabout point that I'm trying to make here, but I feel like we never bring up special versus physical attackers anymore, so I wanted to talk about it for a second. Route 3 and the run in general, we're not really going to have much extra battles, I don't think. With our current moves, Groudon handles this stretch of the game very well, so let's kind of finally touch on the stats. For the primal forms, Groudon is kind of like the inverse Kyogre. It's packing 180 attack, I mentioned that earlier, it has a solid speed stat, and 150 special is nothing to scoff at. Now, you're not really going to use it a ton, but with the added fire typing, the defensive benefits alone is a pretty nice bonus. As for moves, I've already talked about Precipice Blades. Yes, I did shorten the name due to character limits. It's called Prec Blades. Deal with it. Ancient Power is a move we kind of see a lot of for legendaries. No need to go into it. Lava Plume, solid 80 base power fire move. And Earth Power is a slightly weaker Earthquake that we get at level 9. Bulk Up will raise both your attack and defense by 1 stage. Now, I tried tossing some TMs on the side, but with Swords Dance in the mix, it looks like all roads are just leading to that physical focused learn set. Now, with that said, we're really not going to know what's good until the run plays out and we know what we're doing a little bit. And to elaborate on that a bit, I hand make each overlay, and I intentionally leave out a lot of moves just for the sake of readability. I aim for a specific vibe and visual style, and listing every possible move would just really clutter the layout, so I try to keep it simple to the stuff that we actually need and what's important. And like I often mention, in a blind run, I will pick up every single candy outside of Victory Road or the Power Plant candy, and that's really the only thing that happens in Mount Moon. And you can also excuse the janky movement that you're going to see in this video a little bit. I'm trying some new things out in terms of movement, and I'm pretty terrible at it sometimes, but I would like to kind of circle back around to the addition of the fire typing. Now, fire and ground isn't an awful combination, but it essentially makes you basically neutral to everything. The resistance to poison, bug, and fire don't really matter, and who really cares about electric immunity? The double weakness to water is awful, and it will make battles like Misty scary, and that's ultimately going to kind of dictate the flow of the run, and that's why we're going to go to rival number 2 first. There's a couple of upfront problems here. The first is that it's just a speed tile on the Pidgeotto, and more importantly, Ancient Power does not one-shot at level 13. This leads to a sand attack, and I do end up winning, but it made the run a little bit awkward already. I'm at this impasse where Misty is impossible due to our double weakness, and I have to do some rolls of the dice with a speed tie and a sand attack here on rival number 2, and doing early optional battles, it wouldn't be a great start for a run trying to be the best of the best, but we'll reflect on that later. But for now, progress is progress. Anyone who is anyone knows that it's no secret that Nugget Bridge and the path to Bill's house contains the single highest cluster of mandatory battles in the entire game. And now that we're past that tricky fork in the road, things let up, but mostly it just gives us a chance to get some valuable experience. I don't do anything extra here, and this is going to lead us into Misty to find out if this run is going to be in trouble or not. So let's take a look. At this level, we do outspeed the Staryu. I test out Earth Power. It does pick up the one-shot, so that's great. And now we gotta look at the moment of truth because you already know what the actual problem could be. Starmie outspeeds, goes for the Bubble Beam immediately. It does massive damage, but the great news is that I actually survive. And now we get to see if Precipice Blades can one-shot, and it does. And we get that second badge, and this is really, really great news. What this means for the run is that I don't have to do a complete overhaul of the early game, and when you're chasing that Mewtwo bar, which is the Gen 1 standard, the whole reason we do this, and you're trying to beat out maybe other members of the Weather Trio, a setback this early could make things extremely hard, if not impossible. These runs have gotten so good that there is zero margin for error, and this is a great time to bring up why I don't do blind runs for videos most of the time. Now let's say this run was significantly worse. Maybe the Brock split was messy, maybe it required some extra training, maybe Misty was impossible before and even after Nugget Bridge, and rival number 2 wasn't easy to get past. At that point, most of the time, I'm prepared just to scratch the run and start the optimization process there to kind of figure out what you need to do at least up to that point. I get that some people really love to see struggles and failures, and I get why that's more intriguing, and I'm trying to keep a more open mind to that, but that's just a little insight into one of the reasons why I usually just show off the final product more often than not. Down on the SSN, I'm gonna make the decision to skip Body Slam. Between Rock Slide coming up, Swords Dance, we got Stab Ground moves, it felt like I just wouldn't need it. As is tradition with blind runs, we also get that Gentleman Candy just in case. And with the extra levels now, I roll over rival number 3, it is what it is. You can see that the War Turtle's water gun doesn't really do much to me, and there's really not much of a point to go in depth with Lieutenant Surge because you already know what a ground type of this caliber is gonna do. And don't forget that we will not have split data for the blind run. We will have it for the refined run later, so don't worry, it's coming eventually. Skipping ahead to Celadon, there's not much going on in terms of the shop buy, but I do forget to get Rock Slide, and I have to come back here after the fact to get it. It's a major time loss, but remember, I don't really care about human error or even the time of these blind runs. I'm just gathering information. A blind run is not a good indication of how good a Pokemon is, maybe a good indication of how easy it is to play, but we'll clean that up later. From there, I'm going to do some optional content like the Rocket Hideout, Pokemon Tower, and there's not too much to say, but I think the way things are trending with these runs, the fastest course of action is always going to be fill up my bags, progress through the non-gym leader content, and then kind of blitz through the final 5 gyms. I will briefly mention bulk up here. Like the Primal Kyogre run, it's something that I just have to test. Raising my attack could get me through some battles at lower levels, and it felt worth hanging on to at least in the blind run. And as I progress through Silph, remember that I've been picking up the TMs like Swords Dance and stuff after the second Giovanni fight. So we're only going to be level 31 here, so let's see if that really matters for rival number 5. I just mentioned it, but I'm extremely low level, and there's 2 main things here. Number 1, I don't outspeed Pidgeot, and Rock Slide alone is not a one-shot. So rather than go for the kill shot, I set up bulk up for some reason after the fact. I waste some turns, and I end up getting Sand Attack for my trouble, so not looking good. Now the rest of the fight's actually extremely good. I have answers, and I can't stress enough how flexible the Stab Lava Plume was during the majority of this run. I haven't even really brought it up a ton, but I definitely got my mileage out of it. But the only parts of this fight that were kind of sluggish was missing a couple of times on Blastoise, but I was very pleased to get through this one without using any candies. It's a good omen for the future. Afterwards, I go to the Safari Zone, and this is where we're going to top off my bags. I still have Swords Dance, but I'm holding off on it because I doubt I'll need it immediately, and I have to pick up the Hidden Revive here to get my bags full, so it's a little bit janky. Item management always is in blind runs. You really have to plan this kind of stuff out, so I expect it to be cleared up during the final run, but now we're kind of set up, and we're about to go on a complete rampage on a few gyms. Erika's first, and Lava Plume is enough here by itself. I wanted to test that out to see if I could save some PP in the future, and it works out. Not really that much of a surprise, we're kind of over leveled, but that's one gym down. I go to Koga next, and his little marshmallow Pokemon get roasted by Earthquake in a matter of seconds, and then we're just gonna head straight over to Sabrina. And I go here for one reason, and just to cover the fight real quick, I take out Kadabra, take a guess on how many times I might need to set up, and then I just sweep the rest of the fight. The reason I went here was because I need one back slot for the secret key. Now the reality is it probably didn't matter what order I went, but I guess it worked out, so let's keep that momentum going. That means it's time for a brisk swim down to Cinnabar, and even though it's straight down to business, I am too low of a level here and I get wild encounters. The Safari Zone, Pokemon Mansion, Victory Road, those are pivotal points to be at the right level threshold, but I don't really fuss over it too much in a blind run. But outside of that, we have to ask ourselves the age-old question, is TM28 actually
Tombstoner, brother?
or not? I'm not sure if it's the extra levels or just the raw super effective damage, but Blaine doesn't even require any setup, so perhaps going this way first would be better. I'm not really sure. It is what it is, what we expect, and I think we can just slide straight into Giovanni, and it goes great just like you would expect. I set up once, but instead I decided to test out Lava Plume a little bit to see if I can save some PP. It doesn't one-shot the first Pokemon, so I kind of waste some time. I can definitely make this fight a little bit cleaner, but I think we can just go straight into rival number 6 now. And this fight, not too bad. I've learned from the rival number 5 fight that I'll definitely need to set up. So I feel like I'm under leveled, but that's okay because there's no risk with sand attack. And I don't want to feel like a broken record, but it goes fine. This is a pretty good fight. With the monster stats here, I just kind of flex my muscles. But there is one part of the fight that isn't the best. I don't outspeed Alakazam, and even though I'm at full health and it really shouldn't matter, I get Psybeam. The Psybeam crits, and it gets the confusion status. I lose the 50-50 coin toss for confusion. I hurt myself with my own Swords Dance boosted attack stat, and in the blink of an eye, 80% of my health is gone. Now the positive is that I can still one-shot Blastoise, and I do not think that this is something that you would ever need to worry about happening again. I don't think I will plan to outspeed Alakazam, but we did get pretty close to a reset here. Now, my friends, we are approaching the final battles, and after delaying Misty slightly, being able to get past that Starmie, there really hasn't been a single thing in this run that has posed a challenge at all, and that's exactly what you want to see in a blind run. The Elite Four should mostly be safe with a couple of exceptions, and our time right now is pretty good for a blind run, and considering how many mistakes that I've made. So I am going to use a few rare candies to avoid Victory Road encounters, that's level 46, and we're going to start experimenting with the Elite Four, so I say we just take a look. The start of this fight is awkward. I go for Swords Dance and the super effective Aurora Beam gets the attack drop, so now I'm only at +1. I go to set up again and I get Groud, so I'm a little bit weaker than I intended. I've taken some damage, but let's just test out a single Swords Dance basically. Base 180 attack puts in work, and before anyone says anything, I know that a super effective Rock Slide and a Stab Earthquake do the same amount of damage. Broaden your horizons and think about the PP management rather than stressing if a 90% move is going to miss or not. You'll have a much better time, trust me. And there's really not much else to say about this one. It's pretty clear that a higher level or maybe another Swords Dance setup might be a little bit better. I do crit on the Lapras, it survives. The Blizzard does hit kind of hard, but I do hang on and I win this one. It's a little bit closer, but we'll take a better look at it in the optimized run. This week, Bruno, Hiker Anthony, whatever you want to call him, he's sending out one single Pokemon to save us some time. What a good man. Agatha could be awkward, and outspeeding the first Gengar would definitely be preferred, but if I just set up one time, the badge boost will let me outspeed, and from that point I can mow down everything. It worked out fine. I don't really think I have to do anything for this fight, but we'll just take a better look at it later. Oh man, Dance got an intro this week, and I think you know what that means. I'm going to do an immediate pause here, and I think you know why. Being double weak to water and looking down the barrel of a loaded Gyarados Hydro Pump coming up in the first slot is about the scariest thing a man can face in this world, and I knew from the beginning that this would be the true test. Now, do we just straight up one-shot it and not worry about it? Or will this fight make me significantly alter the strategy of the optimized run? Let's find out. Now, my first thought here is 150 base special, one Swords Dance setup. Maybe I can just tank a Hydro Pump, but I can't. Without a crit, it one-shots me, and that's not the best news in the world. So I go down the rabbit hole testing out things, and there's going to be a lot of resets here. This is the nature of a blind run. You have to test, you have to get some data in just to see if you can move things around later. So I keep climbing up levels, testing the ranges, see what needs a crit, what doesn't need a crit, all that kind of good stuff. And I want to reiterate one more point. I don't think the time on a blind run matters. If I'm being brutally honest with you, I think judging a Pokemon off of a blind run is about as useful as titties on a bull, if you know what I'm saying. And the long story short here, this one goes south really fast, and let's pick back up at level 53. We're 9 resets deep, and I finally get a decent result. It seems you have a slim chance after a Swords Dance badge boost to survive the Hydro Pump, and I'm not sure about the range, but I live in red health, and now I can one-shot it. And I'm not sure I really even mentioned this, but you cannot one-shot Gyarados straight up with a Rock Slide. You have to set up. But I do something stupid afterward, and I set up on the Dragonair, and I just wanted to guarantee that I outsped everything else in the fight, and I end up winning. But finally, Primal Groudon has met its match, and I'm gonna need to really dig deep and explore all the options available, because if we have to get to this level and it's still kind of like a coin flip if we survive or not, I think Groudon's in some trouble. I think it's gonna be emphatically worse than the other two Weather Trio counterparts, but at least we know what the worst part of the run is now. Now we get to see the most anticlimactic champion fight ever. I set up 2 Swords Dance early, and I just beat this dude up like he owes me money. I just pummel him in the corner. I'm like Stone Cold Steve Austin, just doing the little stomping a mud hole in him. Everything is getting slaughtered left and right, and even though a Rock Slide almost would assuredly one-shot the Executor, I do try out Lava Plume. It does work out. Pretty much the only interesting thing about the fight. Groudon cleans up, and that ends the blind run. Primal Groudon left a lot to be desired because of a couple of spots, but a 2 hour, 3 minute, and 9 second time is not the worst in the world. Pretty good. It will be interesting to see just how much time we can actually improve, but for now, my first impression feels right. The addition of the fire typing is going to hold us back a little bit, but that makes it that much more of a challenge. I really want to get in and see how low I can get this time, so I'm going to go optimize that run. I'll come back with my findings, so just hang tight for a few seconds. Since Primal Groudon is such a good Pokemon, a lot of the intuitive and natural things in the blind run are mostly the same, so let me cover the changes and things that I found interesting after spending some time refining. And I did several other runs to get this one right, and there's one huge embarrassing thing that we'll talk about towards the end. And also guys, if you want to play these patch files, they are available to channel members and patrons, so do that if you want. On Brock, the ranges are not great. You can actually just one-shot Geodude with a crit, and I do fish for that, but the Onix, even if you get a crit, it's like a 1 out of 200 chance to one-shot, and I don't really think anybody has time for those types of odds. You can get really close as you see here, but overall, pretty solid split. I do skip the Mount Moon candy, and this time rather than add something extra or maybe use some candies, I just take the rival number 2 fight as it is. Even if you get sand attacked, it is what it is. It's not a perfect fight, but I often talk about spending too much time just to save a turn or two in battle. And I'll get insightful comments offering suggestions, and I want to touch on that slightly here. For example, fighting the Light Years Junior Trainer to give maybe slightly better Brock ranges, and maybe being able to outspeed or one-shot the Pidgeotto here. And if you want my opinion on that, you are essentially breaking even in the best case scenario. Now let's say you go through the battle intro and you do all the extra battle animations, maybe you one-shot the Diglett, or maybe the Sandshrew survives a hit. It'll be a 4 total turn battle, not even counting the other parts of the battle that take time, and you just aren't going to get those turns back most of the time. In a run of this caliber, and the runs that you're competing against, they dictate the pace, and when the ultimate goal is just to be as fast as you can possibly be, extra battles early in the game when the experience is next to nothing is almost always a bad idea. Now I love the critical thinking, I love the suggestions, so keep them coming, but it was just something on my mind since the last cross-gen video. Misty goes about the same, but if we dive into the numbers, Starmie needs a crit even with Bubble Beam to knock you out, and you have about a 96% chance to one-shot with Precipice Blades, so there's no problems to solve here, but this is basically the last problem area of the run for a very long time. After cruising through the next bit of the game, I demolished Lieutenant Surge, and now we can finally look at split data for the first time. Now we're going to be focusing on the Surge split here, and we have some very positive early news. I'm sticking with the Mewtwo comparison since I did it for the other 2 videos, but we have a 2-minute 5-second lead, and that's about as good as you can hope for. And seeing this kind of progress is what made me try so hard to get this run across the finish line with a good time. Moving ahead, I actually remember to get Rock Slide on the first buy so I don't waste a ton of time, but I hold off on learning it for a bit, and after tackling the Rocket Hideout and then Pokemon Tower, let's talk about Silph preparation. I'm going to hit level 31 near the end of Pokemon Tower, and I'm going to use 2 rare candies to give me better damage ranges and more speed, and then I'm going to pick up Swords Dance before I finish Silph. I've spoken at length about how it's faster to get Earthquake and Swords Dance, and it is, but think about it this way. We don't need Earthquake, I don't need the rare candy, don't need the 10th floor at all, and since we're not doing an optional battle, you don't really save time skipping Swords Dance, so just get it now, learn it, slap on Rock Slide, and we can get a little power spike here. And with those candies and beefing up our learn set, it'll let you sweep past rival number 5 with minimal risk outside of maybe 1 sand attack. And this is neither here nor there, but I wrote down sad attack, S-A-D, on my notes rather than sand attack, and I got a hearty little chuckle out of it because it's so accurate. I might start calling it sad attack. But Alakazam still outspeeds you, not really that big of a deal. And after that, we move on down and we have proper bag management now, so you'll fill up your bags in the Safari Zone, and now we can go on that 5-tap run of gym leaders to save a lot of time. Erika, Koga, Sabrina, they all fall, but after we beat Sabrina, I will use some candies as well as drop another item. The candies are specifically to help me avoid encounters, and I'm gonna pop all the remaining candies to the run after I pick them up in Pokemon Mansion. To touch a little bit on dropping an item here, it's because Fire Blast is something that I'm gonna end up using. Now I'll talk about it now since it's kind of relevant, but ultimately learning Fire Blast is a side grade. If you know exactly where it's at in your bags, then you can learn it really quick, you can save a minuscule amount of time, but the alternative is going to be a part where you have to fully set up 3 Swords Dance in the champion fight, but you can just save up to 4 turns just by teaching this move. It's a little wrinkle in the run that I went back and forth on. Not really sure how good it is, but ultimately I thought it was kind of unique and I like the idea a lot. After taking out Giovanni and rival number 6, we can take a final look at split data to kind of see where we're at. And I can't stress this enough that I had to go above and beyond for this run. There were many human error aspects outside of the game, as well as the luck factor to get the final result that we're going to see here today, but here's how everything's stacking up. After Giovanni, we got a very comfortable minute and 22-second lead over the Mewtwo bar, and we even gain a few seconds when we start the Elite Four, so I felt very accomplished at this stage in the run, but there's no time to celebrate because we got a few more battles to talk about. Lorelei goes a little bit smoother rather than doing that weird back and forth dance where Dugong keeps dropping my attack, so it's a little bit faster overall until that 90% rock slide accuracy kind of comes into play. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop using the move, it's one of those things that happens. Jinx is going to get an Ice Punch, and I already tanked an Aurora Beam early, and it puts me in kind of a bad position, but I am able to clean up, and this makes the Elite Four a little bit precarious because I do not want to menu, I don't want to heal, and I want to just have the best run that I can get. So I start to take a little bit of a risk, and we're going to see that coming up on Agatha. And this was a scary fight because I need 1 Swords Dance because I don't outspeed the first Gengar, and it's just free to use because I outspeed it after. And we're going to see a turn 1 Nightshade. I go down to just 5 HP, and I was really clinching at this point because the fate of this run is ultimately going to be in the final Gengar's hands. It just goes for Dream Eater, it misses, we're able to survive, and as this battle fades, I'm going to walk into Lance's room, and I have to pause the footage, and I'm going to talk about a few things here. We know the problems this run gave us. We have deduced that level 53 gives you a chance to survive a Hydro Pump after you boost your special with Swords Dance, but I don't have any rare candies, and I'm only level 50, so rightfully so, you're probably asking, hey, what's up? And I brought up the phrase human error a few times in this video, and I think the first instinct when you hear that phrase is, hey, I'm talking about something inside of the game, whether it be poor overworld movement, maybe forgetting to do certain things, picking the wrong move in battle, or just anything of that nature. But remember, these are custom ROMs that I make myself, and I made the huge mistake of not re-evaluating Groudon and its learn set, and instead I mainly leaned on that old muscle memory from that old 2023 run. I looked at how it played, and that's how I set up the ROM. Now remember, Primal Groudon has 150 base special, and the gigantic mistake and the thing that ultimately saves this run is very, very simple. Groudon learns Thunderbolt, and I'm not even stretching the definition like I did with Volcarona and Wild Charge. This Pokemon just straight up learns Thunderbolt as early as its debut in Generation 3, and all the way up to Generation 9, it just learns the move. Now this epiphany moment came to me as I was double checking. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything that could just help me get past Gyarados, and I felt very dumb that I didn't notice this early. And I guess if you look at it glass half full, I'm just glad I noticed it before it was too late and it wasn't in the video. But I felt very silly. The solution, very simple, just learn Thunderbolt. And obviously this means that I'm going to easily one-shot Gyarados at a much lower level. And I do set up once because you can't one-shot Dragonite regardless. But this one little thing made the one thing that holds this run back turn into a trivial walk in the park. So it's just a reminder to you guys, if any of you make your own ROMs, always kind of double check the learn sets to see if there's something there, because there was in this case. The champion fight is largely the same, but I do have Fire Blast for this fight, and the only thing worth talking about is that the Alakazam outspeeds me, but it really doesn't matter here. Without Fire Blast, I need to fully set up to achieve the same results, whereas Fire Blast gives me roughly a 73% chance to one-shot Executor, so I can just do one Swords Dance for ranges on everything else, and I'll take those very favorable odds, and we can just get through the battle. Like I said earlier, it's kind of debatable if extra bag management to make room for Fire Blast and then actually learn it saves you time at the end of the day, and it probably just comes down to personal preference. But my counterpoint to all that is that it just feels really good to set this little coconut tree on fire, and ultimately we put an explosive, ground-shaking exclamation point on the run. Primal Groudon finishes with a final time of 1 hour, 45 minutes and 4 seconds. And just to refresh your memory, Primal Kyogre had a 1 hour, 44 minute and 23 second time, and that is what ended the Weather Trio mini-series in the top spot. Groudon finishes about 40 seconds behind with a very, very respectable 100.6 rating in second place. And as good as Mega Rayquaza was, it once again finds itself in the third spot by about 34 seconds. And as we bring up the tier list, it's very, very clear that all three of the Weather Trio are dominant. They are 3 of the 4 Pokemon that have passed the legendary Mewtwo bar, and in my opinion, all 3 of them are winners, and you just can't go wrong with any of them, and I love how close they are to each other at the end of the day. Special shout out to my channel members and patrons. I really do appreciate the support, and if you made it this far in the video without commenting on the way that I say Pokemon names, you're a real one, and it means a lot to me that you chose to take time out of your day to entertain these little solo run videos that I do. I'm finally going to get started on that 20K special. Hopefully it'll be out in a couple of weeks, so look out for that, and I guess I'll see you then. Bye.